Hello and welcome back to Unleash the Goats, where we unleash ourselves upon the Star Wars franchise with reckless abandon, and nobody quite knows what we'll say next, least of all us. I'm Nat, she, her. Angela, say hi.
Hi, I'm Angela /Faye, she, her.
Sugar, say hi.
Hi, Sugar, she, her.
Before we start this episode, we're going to give a spoiler warning for all of the sequel trilogy, so if you've never watched it, congrats. Proud of you.
Congrats.
We will spoil it for you, and now you don't have to. We're talking about Poe today.
I love him so much. She's so beautiful.
Happy Pride Month, everybody. I did forget to put that in our announcements section.
I celebrate Pride every month, so... But yeah, extra special.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Extra happy Pride. Sorry that my chair... I'm going to try not to move in this chair. It's going to squeak so bad. I should have just gotten a different one. Anyway, I'll hold perfectly still, which I am capable of.
You're really good at.
Okay.
Just hold still while you talk, and everything else is fine.
Oh, perfect. And you'll just mute me. That makes sense. Really quickly, I guess we should say it's a series. I'm so scattered today. Sorry, guys.
This is a series. We're fixing the sequels one piece at a time.
Yes. And today we're fixing Poe, who I would say has a great start. So really quickly, we're going to run through the storyline that Poe goes through. I'm going to talk about The Force Awakens because I've seen that movie. Are you ready? Here's what happens with Poe. He meets Finn, who is escaping as a stormtrooper. Is he a stormtrooper at this point?
He is, yeah.
Okay. I know what stormtroopers are. I've seen these movies. And there's this whole scene where Poe is like, it's the right thing to break you out. And sorry, Finn says that. And then Finn goes, oh, you need a pilot. So he helps Finn escape, and then he disappears. And he was supposed to be killed off. But everyone was like, but you're Oscar Isaac. And we're actually in love with
and
you.
Beautiful. Which
is the correct response to Oscar Isaac. And so he randomly shows back up and has a very flirty scene with Poe where he tells him to keep his jacket, which I've seen on Tumblr many times because he bites his lip. It's very important to me that everyone knows about the lip bite.
He does do that.
And maybe there's also something where he's talking like he's a person in the Resistance with Leia. Is it called the Resistance in the sequels? It
is called the Resistance in the sequels.
Fucking nailed it. And that's
done.
His arc. That's it. He's in like 2 scenes. But they brought him back alive.
He's in like 3 scenes. Because he's in the one where you're introduced to Kylo Ren.
Yeah. His infamous, who talks first? You talk first, do I talk first? Scene.
I don't remember this.
Yeah. I think I think the first scene of the whole
he is the film, opening scene is Poe Dameron, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Poe starts us off introducing us to the villain and the stakes of the story. But yes, arguably in this film he is not particularly well fleshed out character.
No.
And then we jump to The Last Jedi, where he continues to be not a very well fleshed out character. Because then they're like, okay, so you know how he was this character in the first movie, who we've just described. He is now a hotshot pilot who's basically Han 2.0, who nobody trusts and is extremely reckless. And he's going to start out by doing this move that gets a bunch of people killed. And then getting slapped by Leia. And then after Leia goes down, he's, like, questioning the new chain of command because he's like, what the hell is going on? And they're not telling him anything. And then I think he gets hit again or shot or something. And
stuns him.
She stuns him. Yes, she stuns him. And then they're like, oh, but he's so cute. I like him so much. And they pat his cheek as they put his unconscious body onto the shuttle. And then he wakes up and they're like, you're the leader now, Poe, of the, like, 20 people left of the Resistance. And, like, some other shit happens, but that's basically his arc.
Yeah, I think I simplified this down as the impulsive pilot learns that being a leader requires patience and faith, I think is the intended arc he's supposed to be on, but it's executed so badly that it doesn't matter.
As are most things in that movie.
The most generous read possible could read it that way. Yes.
Yeah, like I said, I think that was the intended arc that he's supposed to be on. It's just so bad. Also, let's not forget that he got demoted, too. Like, he comes in and is immediately demoted by Leia for going against orders, which, like, okay, he did go against orders, but...
Yeah, but why did he go against orders? Why did he do that? Because that's not his character.
Well, yes. Yeah, I think they... Yeah. Because, like, in Force Awakens, he is given much more of a, like, trusted... He seems like he's in a trusted position with Leia that all of a sudden disappears.
Yeah.
Anyway, this leads us nicely into Rise of Skywalker, where the arc, I simplified it as the cynical leader gives one last push and learns that sometimes people show up to help when you need it. I don't super remember exactly how all of this happens. Like, we start off, he's going on missions with Finn. He ends up going along with Finn and Rey to find their holocron/Wayfinder. He, at some point, takes Finn and Rey to this planet, whose name I have now forgotten. I didn't bother looking up on Wikipedia. Where his where his ex-girlfriend is, whose name I've also ignored because I don't really care. I don't remember why. Lady. What?
Pink suit lady.
Yeah, pink or red or whatever it is, played by that actress, Kerry Russell.
I thought you were going to leave it as played by that actress. This is how much we don't care.
We never even see her face, which pissed me off. She's so
We don't
beautiful.
see her face, yeah. And I don't remember why he takes them to this planet. I think it's to do something to do with C-3PO, getting someone to force him to translate the Sith holocron, but I could be wrong. Doesn't matter. He does take over as general after Leia dies, and he promptly makes Finn his co-general. And I believe he's the one who is sent out to try and gather up the civilians to help them in the final battle, and then he arrives with the civilian army at the end against the First Order. And then they hug at the end, and that's pretty much how that ends.
And then they go off to the sunset, have a beautiful throuple.
Yeah. So that is, if you have not watched the sequels at all, or if you haven't seen them in a minute, that is the general concept of what happens. Very quickly, I want to talk about how we kind of were referencing this slightly, but Poe's storyline seems to have gotten changed a little after Force Awakens. I believe Poe was not originally intended to be a member of the main trio. Star Wars sequels tend to have a trio of sorts with, like, the Obi-Wan, Anakin, Padme, and Han, Luke, and Leia. And I don't think Poe was actually originally written to be a member of the trio.
Unclear who they intended the third member to be, though.
If they intended a third member at all.
Yeah, but it's unclear. The things that I was reading today said that when George, like, after Lucas cast, I believe it was Lucas, after Oscar Isaac was cast, they were like, our initial intention for this character was to die. And then they rewrote it to keep him in. So it makes sense that his storyline is a little all over the place, because the storyline should have wrapped up 10 minutes into the movie.
Right.
And then they kept him.
And then they kept him around. And so, yeah, he doesn't have much of an arc, because clearly they rewrote it so that he lived at the end of Force Awakens, but not enough to give him a real narrative.
Right.
He is still basically there just to, like, be the catalyst to get Finn into the story. And that's kind of it. And then he just shows back up later, magically, is already there waiting for him at the Resistance, even though it has taken Finn a massive amount of effort to get there himself.
Well, first he saves their lives, because he shows up with all the X-Wings. And he is the leader of the X-Wing pilots. He is in charge of the squadron. Yeah. And he shows up and saves everybody's butts with the X-Wing strike, whatever.
Right, which means he's already made it back to the Resistance. You're right, but yeah.
And he's been there for a while. Interesting. So clearly he is more competent at getting off planet than Finn is.
Which, Finn, like, Poe just, like, bounced.
Is actually very in character for both of them.
But, yeah, so, like, nothing really happens. He's just kind of there in the first film. And, like, his part ends, sort of, after the beginning, when ostensibly he probably was originally intended to die at the very beginning.
What I would caveat that with is that we're introduced to him, like we talked about in the very beginning, when he is being sent by Leia to get information about Luke's whereabouts. So he is Leia's choice to go and receive and not rescue, but essentially get information about her twin brother who has been missing for like 20 years. So this is someone she trusts a lot. This is like their top guy, essentially.
Right, and then he's the one who vouches to Leia for Finn.
And she trusts him enough to just let him in.
Yeah, it's Poe's word that Leia trusts enough to keep Finn around and do things with Finn later. So yeah, there is a lot of trust set up between Leia and Poe in this, but he doesn't have a real arc where he's developing as a character, mostly because he's gone for like a good 60% of the film. But yeah, so then really his arc starts in The Last Jedi, and it's like, oh, okay, like now they have to actually do something with him, which means they have to give him a flaw to work on. But unfortunately, the flaw that they picked goes against the trusted position that he was in initially. And so it's a little unfortunate that's just kind of how this worked. So it's very clumsily done.
Do you guys want a quote from Rian Johnson about this? Because
Sure, yeah. Let's hear what Rian Johnson had to say.
Rian Johnson had... Somebody asked him for some reason about this, and he said...
I could be wrong. Is it Rian?
I don't care. Rian.
Okay.
Johnson.
I don't have enough respect for him to pronounce it correctly.
Fair enough.
He said he's the hardest to write for in terms of just figuring out what their story was going to be, because Poe is such a clear-cut, simple character. Because he's Oscar Isaac, the most charismatic man in the world. And the first draft, Poe went with Finn to Canto Bright, whatever. And they were going to be together, but they just got along so well. And it was really boring.
I kind of remember this now that you're saying it again. I feel like I remember seeing this.
That is a real quote. I did paraphrase a little bit of it, but that is a real quote that he said about Finn and Poe, two of the most popular characters.
I would pay so much money to see them I would pay so much money to see them just get along. That sounds incredible. Yeah. That sounds good.
Why can't their challenge be the mission?
Yeah, why can't they be working together?
Yeah, on the one hand, I understand that it removes the resistance from the story entirely at that point, but on the other hand, that is how Empire Strikes Back worked, so it's not that big a deal.
You also could have just, if you want... I love Rose, so you could keep Rose in the story and just have the three of them go to Canto Bright together.
Yeah, and, her as, the catalyst
Finn's,
to get them
pissed
there.
At her, and Poe is friends with her, so it's a weird,
yeah.
There you go. I solved it. I put some conflict in there for you.
Woo-hoo!
It didn't even take that much work.
Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Unleash the Goats. We fixed it.
The other thing, obviously, that is a problem is that Poe doesn't even meet Rey at all until the end of the second movie.
Are you serious?
They literally have to... dead serious. I mean, theoretically, they should have met, off-screen in Force Awakens, because Rey is wandering around the Resistance base for a hot second, and Poe is awake. They do
with the novelization, yeah.
Right, but then at the end of The Last Jedi, he introduces himself to her, clearly telling us that, they actually have not formally met, even if they might have seen each other in passing, and they know who they are, but, that's also part of why Poe doesn't end up feeling like a part of a real trio, because, he hasn't even met one of our main characters till the end of the second movie. And it's very frustrating. And, and it's weirdly feels like it's setting up a romance between Poe and Rey, which is, that's late in the game to be trying to set up a romance.
I was personally not against that, because it was clear they were not doing Rey and Finn anymore, and I was at least, Poe would be nice to her, and, that's better than Kylo Ren, and they dropped that too. And they're
they dropped that real fast, which I think was smart, just because where are you going with this? They've just met now. You only have one more movie to work with here. Setting up a whole new romance for Rey at this point is ridiculous. They don't have a dynamic to continue with now because you haven't spent any time setting it up. And yet, which is it wouldn't have been terrible on paper, but I think in execution it would have been really hard to make it feel particularly believable for Poe and Rey to be an endgame couple when you have one movie to actually work on that. Work on any dynamic. At least with Han and Leia, right, they're not together at the end of the first movie, but we've seen their friendship start to build, and then they work through the second movie with the romance, so there's time to do that, but it's Poe and Rey got nothing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do enjoy the dynamic at the beginning of the Rise of Skywalker when, they're very frustrated with each other and, yelling a lot, and, Finn's over here being can you guys just, get along? It's very funny. Just get along. I really enjoy it. It's really great.
I agree. I think that it's a fun dynamic where it's, they're, they don't seem to dislike each other, and the frustration is more, I know that I can whinge at you,
yes.
a little bit and it's very safe because you're not going to take it super personal, and we can just kind of whinge at each other and get rid of our frustrations at the general situation on each other, and it's chill, it's fine, and it's just kind of a way for them to let off steam without it actually hurting anybody's feelings. I don't think Rey or Poe take it particularly personally when he's oh, what did you do to my ship? Oh, what did you do to BB-8? And they're just kind of never mind, don't look at it. It's cute, it's fun, it's a fun dynamic. We'll get more into the drug earner backstory, but Poe does get this whole backstory thing that happens in The Rise of Skywalker that has never even been hinted at prior to this movie, and it's just kind of dropped in there, and then it has no real impact for no reason. It's just kind of dropped in there as oh, by the way, we forgot to give this character a backstory outside of the like comics and novels and stuff that had looked at it, and this is obviously very much not the backstory that was in those comics and novels, because it's very different. But
yeah, Poe's a nepo baby. Like, his parents were in the rebellion
they were in the rebellion in some of those comics.
He's like raised on Yavin and shit, and like goes to the like X-Wing Academy, like whatever. And then they're like, nah, actually he's a spice runner, because you know what, he's Latino, and that's what Latinos are, right? They're spice, they're drug runners, people.
Yeah, that's not problematic
and just
at all.
Structurally, no. Mm-hmm. And we'll get back to that later. We'll come to the racism. Put a pin in that, because I have a whole racism section. It's fun, but just structurally, like, regardless of what the backstory is, just dropping it in the middle of the third film is like, hang on. Hey, come on. This is too late to be dropping backstory stuff. It's not something he can grow from. It's not something they can explore, especially because Rise of Skywalker is essentially 2 movies in one. It's moving very quickly. And so it's just kind of thrown at us, and then nothing happens with it, of course. Especially because he's already grown through it, arguably, right? He's not actually a drug runner anymore, and he's been in the Resistance for years, so it's like, that character growth has happened already, so what is the point of this?
Mm-hmm. Especially because you didn't even need to do it to, like, get the connection, because they drop it in there so he has a reason to have, like, an underworld connection. He could have been an undercover mission. He could have just, like, had a friend who, like, went to the underworld. Like, he could have, like, there's so many possible reasons for him to have a friend who does,
there are so many ways to make those connections that weren't this.
Yeah. Very easily. And instead they're like, nah, he's Latino, make him a drug runner.
Yeah, make him a drug runner, which I think, like, you could argue, too, that, like, while there are obvious racism things happening here, that this was also an impact of trying to force him into the Han mold, because that was also what Han was.
Yep, literally.
And, like, it feels like it's something where they were like, oh, whatever, let's just give him Han's backstory without thinking through the ramifications of making your Latino character a drug runner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or former drug runner. And then it was like, oh, by the way, actually, that's a racist problem. And it's like, oh, but that was Han's thing. It's like, yeah, but Han wasn't Latino. Like, it's not an issue there in the same way that it is for Poe's character. I think the last one we kind of hit on, just that his characterization doesn't match from Force Awakens into The Last Jedi, where they suddenly give him a flaw that contradicts what we're told in Force Awakens about his relationship to Leia and his relationship to the Resistance. Which does then lead us into the racism stuff. So, let's hit on that. We've talked about the drug smuggling. Very much an issue. Obviously, if you're somehow not aware of this being an issue for the racist reasons, then the idea is that Latin American men in particular are often forced into drug smuggling roles in American and Western media. It's obviously super reductive, reduces Latin American men and Latin American culture to nothing but violence and crime. And the whole idea of him being a former drug smuggler also feels explicitly opposite to the person that Poe was introduced as in The Force Awakens and the backstory from the comics, where he's the child of, I believe, 2 former rebels, right? I think both of them are former rebels who were friends with Leia. And obviously, as one of the very few explicitly Latin characters in Star Wars, was he the first? The first character played by an explicitly Latin
He's
actor.
The first one who's not an alien.
Fair enough.
No, that's not true. Because there's Bail Organa.
You're right. Yes. Okay. So, yes, Bail Organa.
How could we forget? I was like, our boy.
How could I forget my name?
So sorry, Bail.
I'm so sorry, Jimmy Smits.
You were just so so important that we forgot in how many ways.
Listen, we're in the sequels. He's like several decades dead here. I'm not there. We'll get back to Bail Organa maybe, but still one of very few, one of the first, and so it was important to think that through, and we did. The other problem I brought up was the hot-headed Latin stereotype, which is usually applied to Latino women, but you do get it with men as well through things like the Latin lover trope, or like Latin American men often being given this idea of machismo, which for similar reasons across both the male and female versions of this trope, it reduces the character to just an object. And the idea is that they are loud, bombastic, passionate, hot-blooded, and quick-tempered. Which, I mean, we're kind of repeating ourselves a little bit here, but, like, Poe is very much a trustworthy figure within the Resistance. You know, trusted not just to be a pilot, but to be essentially a spy at the very beginning. That's what he's doing, is he's going in kind of doing well, not really spy work, but that he's going in attempting to kind of...
It's a covert mission.
It's a covert mission. It's not quite undercover spy work, but it is covert.
But it is meant to be very subtle, and he's also a very steady presence for Finn as they're, like, escaping. Like, Finn is very anxious and freaking out, and Poe is very settled, very calm.
Yeah, Poe's having to keep them together.
This. Like, there's some, like, yelling and stuff happening as they're excitingly, like, moving and everything, but as they're trying to, like, get shit together, like, Poe is very much the one who's like, I have experience, I've done this before. Not this exactly, but I've done shit like this before. We're good. I've got it. And, like, they kind of, like, go away from that a lot.
They move away from that in Last Jedi a lot, and it puts him far more into this sort of hot-headed Latin stereotype, which is unfortunate, where he's up against two older white women, primarily, with both Leia and then Emmeline Holdo. Holdo? Yes.
Yeah.
Played by Laura Dern, I think. Where both of them have to, like, fight against him and belittle him and ultimately take him out, you know, through physical means.
And slap him for some reason.
Yeah, there's physical violence, the slapping, the stunning, you know, where he's knocked unconscious, you know, as opposed to treating him like a trusted person, you know, like, essentially he's introduced as, like, Leia's right-hand man, and we don't see any of that trust happening later, and they're just dismissing him entirely, which is very frustrating.
That's not to say they don't have a relationship. They clearly have a very, like, working relationship, Poe and Leia do. And, like, she clearly, like, likes him a lot. It's very obvious. But it's also very much a, like, tension where he's fighting against her to do what he wants, and she's fighting him to get him to do what she wants him to do. And it's not a very much... It's very different from the first movie completely. It's not that their relationship is bad, because they're clearly still very close, but they're much more tense and, like, at odds for not really any good reason.
And I think, like, you could have introduced conflict and tension to that relationship without turning Finn into a hot-blooded, temperamental, you know, hotshot pilot, right? That, like, there could have been tension about how to manage a difficult situation where it's like, Poe has one idea and Leia's got another, and they're trying to figure that out. Like, I think there's ways you could do that, you know, without, like, removing the fact that Poe is a trusted, you know, confidant for her. So his development as such comes at the expense of reducing him to a stereotype, just so that he can grow back into the character that he already was in Force Awakens.
Which is just unnecessary.
It's super unnecessary. And the last thing I'll hit on here with the hot-headed Latin is that hitting on the idea of machismo is that obviously you get a lot of masculinity here, which comes with a lot of heterosexuality thing. And, you know, his backstory in Rise of Skywalker comes with the addition of a past female love interest dressed in a super skimpy, sexy catsuit. And Poe has to repeatedly, like, see if she's interested in restarting the relationship. And while he's respectful each time she says no, and he's not creepy when he makes his interest known, it is at least twice that he kind of tries to, like, ask her to restart this thing. And it does feel a little bit like it's just really forcing the heterosexuality here, maybe as a reaction to Finn Poe or Storm Pilot becoming very popular in the fandom world. And just kind of trying to go like, no, we're not going that way. He's going to be super hetero. He's got a female love interest, and his love interest is like the skimpiest space girl you've ever seen.
And she doesn't have a face that you'll see, apparently.
She doesn't even have a face, let alone a real personality.
Literally a faceless love interest, yeah.
Yeah. Like, and he doesn't like hand-holding all of a sudden in The Rise of Skywalker. Like, it's a repeated joke that, like, he's annoyed that that Finn and Rey are always trying to hold hands with him, even though he was pretty fine with, like, being kind of tactile and almost sentimental in Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And again, it feels like traditional heterosexual masculinity doesn't allow for being soft, and so forcing him into this more machismo kind of personality sort of takes away more of what people found compelling about him before. Just another way that the hot-headed Latin stereotype perhaps is, you know, restrictive and not particularly nuanced.
Yeah.
So.
Boo!
But we're talking about the Last Jedi thing, and, like, they kill off his entire X-Wing group in the beginning of The Last Jedi, and they could have used that to, like, make his shift in behavior make sense, and they do not.
That's true. It could be grief driven, and I don't think they really touch on that at all.
It never comes up. He watches all of his friends die in a fireball, and then it never comes up again.
Well done, Ryan Johnson.
Okay. I will say that I would imagine that if you have been in the Resistance for a while, you get used to your people dying. But if you have written your character to have this, like, devolution and to suddenly be behaving in a different way than he was in the first movie, like, that's right there. And a very good, sure. Like, grief does really weird things to people. That's such an easy out that they could have taken for free to be like, this is why he's behaving this way.
Literally, you could have had, like, because there are still people there who are his friends that are still around because they're the ones who do the mutiny with him. You could have had a tiny conversation with any of them, pulling him aside and being like, hey, man, are you good?
Yeah.
Like, this is not normal for you. You're being really reckless. Anything. And he could have been like, no, I'm fine. I'm like moved on and like kept being weird. But it would have been clear, this is not normal for me. This is him being weird and his people are concerned about him. Without the old white ladies being like, he's so sweet. Isn't he so silly goofy? That was so weird. I love Leia so much. That was weird as fuck.
Does she literally,
it's such a strange...
Does she do that?
Literally, as I don't remember if she pats his cheek, but like as they're like putting him onto the stretcher because he's unconscious and like loading him onto the ship, she's just like, I just love him. And they're like, I know, he's so nice. It's so
Leia
weird.
and Holdo do have a conversation where they admit to each other that they do like Poe.
As if
over his unconscious body.
As if that would make up for the violence that they've done to him.
And the lack of respect and trust. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually think this segues us nicely because I think this works as a dropped storyline. The idea of his whole group got killed off, and that was something that they could have pursued. The idea of grief and maybe Poe feeling like we need to really push back against these riskier ideas. Maybe either that or the opposite of like, okay, all these people are dying. We need to push harder to make those sacrifices worth it. Something like that. Where
the death of the first intentionally female X-Wing pilot, my dear Jessica Pavlov, who died horribly. That was so sad. I say intentionally female because there is one in the original trilogy, but they didn't really mean for her to be woman. She just wore lipstick a lot and wouldn't let them make her a man.
Well done, girly.
Good for her.
Are there, for maybe the first X-Wing, but I think there are female pilots in the Naboo contingent that go up to take out the droids.
There are, yeah.
So we have seen female pilots who are like sort of militaristic, but they are not X-specific. But yeah, so I think that actually is a really interesting dropped storyline. So for context, we are going to look at dropped storylines specifically in the context of like, this is a storyline that was established and set up within the context of the films, but it never got any real follow-up. And it just kind of is sitting there as this weird, like, this could have happened, and they chose not to do anything with it.
Okay, this is a tiny one. This is so silly. It's actually barely in the movie. But Poe wears a ring on a chain around his neck for all 3 movies. It is there the whole time. It is established in some of the books that it is his mother's ring he is waiting to give to someone special.
That's so
interesting.
cute.
Was that like an Oscar ad, or was it some sort of character ad?
He's wearing it in all 3 movies. It is specifically a Star Wars thing. It has like little Star Wars details on it. And then there's a book that has like, all the descriptions of the characters, like clothes and everything. And there's a detail on this, like it's his mother's ring that he's waiting to give to someone special. Presumably, when that book came out right after The Last Jedi, so presumably they were like trying to set up something for Rey or something.
For Rey, yeah.
But he wears it the whole time, and it's never commented on, it's never brought up. But it's an interesting thing to have in the movie, and then just like not do anything with as like part of the character. I don't mind it. I like it when characters have like details and stuff, but
yeah, a clear intentional character or like costume choice.
Yeah,
that's why I was asking if it was an Oscar thing, because sometimes stuff like that, if it hadn't had the Star Wars details on it, is something like where Oscar Isaac chose to do that because he always wears a ring or on a chain or something, and like I didn't know if that was like a thing that Oscar chose as an actor to do, and so it that's why it doesn't get any mention, or if it, because like it's interesting. That's weird that like it doesn't get any.
That literally does nothing. Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
But that does segue us nicely into one of the more obvious ones that we have mentioned several times now, which is the romance with Rey. where obviously it does seem to have gotten pretty obviously set up at the end of The Last Jedi, and then they clearly decided that they didn't want to actually do that. Mm-hmm. And so then it just gets no mention. You never really get any further development of that romance. And it's not explicitly set up as a romance, but the way that they are introduced to each other does feel pretty deliberately, like, romantic coded.
Yeah, it's very much one of those things where, like, there was a little bit of baiting happening where they, like, have a very fun, flirty dynamic, and, like, they're very cute, and it's kind of like, let's throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, they probably did multiple takes, and they put the one with the lip bite in the movie.
Wait, for Rey too?
No, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, no, we're on drop storylines still, not storylines that were never going to happen.
I feel like they put the lip bite in there.
We'll get to Finpo, guys. I promise we'll get to Finpo. We're not there yet.
They, like, hold hands for, like, a long time when they, like, meet. And there's the whole, like, oh, I'm Rey. And he's like, I know. Which is a very Star Wars romantic thing. And it's very much like...
Yeah, it does feel like it's
I left the theater being like, are they gonna date? Okay, I'm not against that. They're hot. Fine.
Yeah. We've kind of already talked about the romance with Rey. I'm not mad that they didn't do any follow-up with it. I think it was smart not to pursue it. But... you know, it's not worse than the other option that they did go with. Like, I probably would have preferred a botched Rey Poe romance to the Rey Lo stuff that we got.
Yeah, because that shit was awful.
If they were gonna do a Poe romance, I think they should have introduced it in the first movie. And I think that is, like, that's the main problem, is that, like, if you're gonna do that and you're gonna pretend he's part of the trio, you have to give him more in the first movie. And also, if you're gonna try to introduce a romance, it can't be at the end of movie 2. It can't be a faceless person in movie 3. It is in movie 3, right?
It is.
I did it. I'm listening. I'm listening and I'm learning.
Yes.
What's happening.
Harry
which
Russell
I think
in
is
movie 3.
We'll get to it, but I think, like, Finn and Poe are introduced in movie 1.
Yeah, I think you could have done a romance in movie 2. It just would have had to be not at the end. And like, also, if you'd introduced it towards the beginning.
Yeah, and maybe not with Rey, who he hasn't met for some reason in movie 1. I think you'd have to commit to that pretty early.
They could have had Poe be Leia's controversially young boyfriend.
Hang on, let me think about it.
I am not against. I'm not against. I would never have made it, obviously, but I love the concept.
Her and Han do not get back together. They're just, like, very divorced couple energy. They're comfortable. They're hugging. She could have had a little controversially young boyfriend on the side. Poe is, like, 30 years old. He's not a young chicken. He's
I was going to say, that's not that controversial depending on how early they got together, but...
Yeah, that's true. What's so funny is that I so frequently have no idea how old Oscar Isaac is, because he feels like mid-20s in The Force Awakens to me. And then I watch Dune, and I'm like, and now you're a 50-year-old man.
Yeah.
But not enough time has passed between the filming of these movies for that to be true.
I don't know
why he feels so young to me in Force Awakens.
I think they're deliberately trying to make him young, but the actors are further apart in age. But I'll never forget that there was a red carpet where they were asking, I think, how old the three of them were. And, like, John Boyega and Daisy Ridley were like, oh, yeah, I'm, like, 20, 21. And then they went to Oscar, and he was like, oh. Like, just, like, groaned as an answer, because I think he's, like, fully 10 or 15 years older. They're, like, these spry little whippersnappers, and he's, like, the old guy in the group. Of sorts, you know? And he was just like, look at me, the old man, having to constantly deal with these two. Like, and, like, you don't get anything but a groan, but it, like, said a lot on its own. And I think that was one of the first times that it hit for me, too, that, like, no, Oscar's, like, significantly older than Rey and Finn. And if you watch the movies through that perspective, it actually works. I mean, aside from some of the weird shit that happens in the later movies, it actually works relatively well as, like, a concept where, like, Poe is more established along his narrative, along his journey as a character. Like, he's already in the Resistance. He's Leia's right-hand man. Like, you know, he's already done a lot of his development, whereas Rey and Finn are, like, right at the beginning. And, like, having this sort of... And it's not too dissimilar to Han, where Han is a little older than, you know, Luke and Leia. And, I mean, Leia feels relatively established herself, but you also have this with Obi-Wan, Padme, and Anakin, where Obi-Wan is significantly older than the other two.
And you have that with Leia and Han, where Han is a little bit less mature for his age than Leia. Leia's more mature for her age than
That's true.
Luke is. And then Han is a little less mature. And so he's still, like, kind of at the beginning because he's kind of, like, a bad spot in his life. And then
he's still developing.
And then Obi-Wan is very much the mentor role to, honestly, both Padme and Anakin. I mean, it's a little more on even footing with Padme because they very much treat each other as equals. But, like, she still goes to him for advice in a few episodes of Clone Wars, etc., etc. And, like, you could have put him in that role in the Star Wars movies, and they don't do that.
Yeah, he definitely could have been in a little bit more of a, like, oh, you are just now joining the Resistance, let me help you find your way. And that Poe's development is not like, oh, he's at the very beginning of it and he needs to get from point A to B. It's like, no, he's made it to B already, now he needs to get to C. Like, you know, Rey and Finn are going A, B, and he has to go B, C, where it's like, they're just figuring out how to be a rebel at all, or be a Jedi, you know, as the case may be. Whereas Finn is like, no, I'm already there, I'm already a rebel, I'm already fighting against the evil. But, like, Leia is starting to phase out and phasing Poe in as a leader. And they kind of land him there at the end, but it feels like it was very quick and rough because you jumped him all the way back to hotshot pilot in Last Jedi. And so I'm like, I don't buy that he's now in a leaderly position because you didn't let him stay higher in his development.
I mean,
or further along in his development.
I can see where they wanted to push him in The Last Jedi to be like, I'm not ready for a leader role yet, but let me learn some lessons and then I will be ready. But they push him so far back. They push him so far back that it really doesn't feel like he learned that much from the lessons. And, like, especially with how awfully he's treated by those in leadership in that movie. Not really by Leia, but so much as Holdo, where he's asking questions and trying to lead, and she's not letting him. Like, she's not giving him any information. Just
completely blocking.
Just, like, being like, blind obedience is all I need from you. And, like, that's crazy. That's not good leadership, first of all. I mean, good follower, but if you're asking this guy to, like, step up and be a leader, that's not a quality you should be asking from him.
Yeah. We've kind of moved now into the botched storylines, where these are storylines that got established and did get follow-up, but they just sucked ass. And the relationship with Leia and his leadership within the rebellion is kind of the primary one that I feel like got really, really botched. Like, I feel like instead of having him be like, I'm not ready for leadership, I would have preferred it more like what you get from Obi-Wan and Phantom Menace, where it's like, no, he is ready. He's young, maybe, and he has, like, one last lesson to learn from his mentor, but he's essentially ready to break out on his own and be a leader as needed.
Like, you very much could have had him be like, okay, I actually can't leave to go do these things because I'm needed here to be a leader because there's so few leadership left because they all just died. That would make sense. That would make perfect sense. And have him, like, have to be like, I have to step back from being, like, the guy in the field and, like, move towards being a leader part. That would have worked really well. They don't do that, and it's really frustrating because I feel like there's an interesting thing happening with, like, the original trio and, like, the trio in the sequels where you have Rey as a successor to Han and Finn kind of as a successor to Luke. Not really, they don't do that. And then Poe as a successor to Leia. They don't play with it, honestly, enough, in my opinion. Like, it's a very loose thing for the most part, and I think they could have pulled on that thread a lot more.
Well, and of course, Rey ends up also becoming the successor to Luke as well.
Which didn't make sense. We've talked about our Finn episode before. Like, Finn should have been the Luke successor. But
we'll talk about it again when we get to Rey later.
We will. But it's very established that Poe specifically is the Leia successor. Early on, it's established that. Because they're very close. They're the ones that have, like, the tightest bond of the whole trio.
And he's the established rebel.
Exactly. And it's a really good dynamic. And they really don't pull on it that much. Like, Leia's unconscious.
Well, and then they move him, like we've noticed, back into the Han role. That he ends up sort of becoming the Han successor in many ways. Because he's the one that's not magical.
Yeah, they, like, try and switch it in the second movie to, like, they move everybody around to, like, have a different, like, mentor figure. And it really doesn't work. Because you already have these established things happening. Where, like, you have the guy with the lightsaber who, like, called it to him accidentally, whatever. You have the girl who wants to be a hotshot pilot, and you have the guy who's in the rebellion and, like, is already established here. You already have these roles. And then listen, Rian Johnson is fine. He's fine. He's a very good director. Knives Out are fantastic movies, and clearly he's not against gay people and women. However, this is not a well-written movie specifically for gay people and women, and I don't know what his fucking problem is.
And people of color.
Yes.
And people of color more than gay people.
Yeah. I don't know what his issue is for this movie specifically, because clearly he's capable of it, because Knives Out are all good movies. I haven't actually seen them because I hate him, but
they are.
Everybody
really
says that they're great.
Yeah, I can vouch. I've seen them and they're good.
I don't know why he couldn't bring that energy to Star Wars.
I think the problem is that this is very much not about Poe. We're moving a little bit away from that. But my thing with Rian Johnson is I think Rian Johnson very much wants to be an auteur. Like, he wants real bad to be an auteur.
What is an auteur?
It's an auteur is the idea of, like, a director who's kind of a brand unto themselves. So, like, Hitchcock and Kubrick, where like he wants to be kind of in that same category.
You can't do that in Star Wars.
Exactly. And it's like, it's not even just that it's within Star Wars. He's the second movie in a trilogy. So I'm like, you really can't be stepping out here and trying to make this your own sci-fi thing with a Star Wars label on it. Like, you had a job to do, and it was A, fit within Star Wars, and B, move this storyline along in a way that makes sense from what was set up in the first one. Which doesn't actually explain away the racism and the misogyny that we were getting in this movie.
It does not. Like, it's so weird. Like, he has so many other movies where this is not a problem for him. And then this movie is, like, the worst. It's so bad. Like, J.J.
really
Abrams
bad.
is not, like, a great, like, feminist or anything. Like, he's not. But his movies are way better in terms of treating people of color, women, and gay people as people. For some reason.
Right. Yeah. As characters, at least within the Star Wars context. He's definitely had his moments of misogyny, obviously, within other films.
But if we're comparing them in Star Wars specifically, you would think that Rian Johnson was the asshole racist misogynist guy. And in every other movie, that's not true. It's so weird.
Yeah. And, like, in fairness to both halves of this here, like, we don't know how much executive input was happening for this film behind the scenes, and so we're putting a lot on Rian Johnson. And I'm not willing to take all of it off of Rian Johnson, but just given what we saw happen with Rise of Skywalker, where I'm like, okay, some of the mean, nasty, dynamic bullshit clearly was coming from Rian Johnson because it didn't happen in Rise of Skywalker, but I do think that there was probably a certain amount of executive overwriting and input happening within these films and within Last Jedi in particular that might have led to some of what we saw happen. But I think it's frustrating.
Yeah. Do you guys think if we ignore The Last Jedi, as I am wont to do, and jump from Force Awakens to Rise of Skywalker, do you think that Poe's storyline makes sense between the two?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think you could cut out... Like, I don't think you could do that for Rey and Finn as easily, but Poe I actually think is one of the ones where you can, because then you get him... He's got the friendship with Finn already, he's met Rey now, and they're, like, just kind of talking to each other, and they have a dynamic, and it's just been built up off screen, which is fine. About a year has passed, and you're like, okay, this makes sense, they have a new dynamic, and he just moves forward with his leadership stuff because Leia dies.
Yeah.
And it makes sense from there to just cut out the middleman here for Poe's story. And this is the one place where that works.
I actually kind of think you could do that for, like, all of The Last Jedi. You could just cut the whole thing. You just need, like, to add, like, a title card that's like, Luke told Rey to go away, and Kylo killed Snoke.
I was going to say there are some plot things that happen.
That's like the two main things that happen in The Last Jedi that you can't really, like, skip over. And then just cut to the Rise of Skywalker, then being like, and somehow Palpatine has returned.
I mean, I'm not against it. I do think that they kind of built Rise of Skywalker to mostly be able to do that, which is funny, but, there would be weirdnesses, but I think there's some degree to which you can do that with the sequels, which is very silly and very funny on my end. But yeah, I think staying within the botched storylines, we've talked about Poe's backstory a little bit. I don't think he needed to have the exact same story as they put in the comics, even though it was nice. But literally anything other than drug runner would have been great.
Yep.
I like the parents as rebels. I think that's fun.
I do too. I'm not saying it's a bad one. I'm just saying it didn't have to be exactly that.
Yeah, you didn't have to be, like, completely truthful to it, but I don't know, that seems fun.
There's, like, a couple comics where, like, Poe and Kylo, like, in fact, Poe and Ben, when he's a child, like, meet once or twice. Which
that's kind of sick.
I think is very funny. I think it's... people do not play with the Poe-Kylo dynamic nearly enough. This is Leia's actual son and her chosen son. Like, her actual child and her chosen successor. That is a great dynamic. These are people who knew each other as children, and now they're, like, on opposite sides of a war. That's hilarious. That's so funny. They hate each other, but also they have the same mom. Yeah, that's hilarious.
That is...
Please
and you start with them.
With potential.
They're the first dynamic we ever get, too. Like, the whole series starts with Poe and Kylo.
And I know they didn't really have that idea, like, when he takes his helmet off, but, like, that would have been hilarious if Poe had been like, put the helmet back on, you look better before.
Wow, I'm sad now.
Are you going by Kylo? Because, like, I thought your name was Ben.
Ben.
Oh my god,
hey,
Poe having, like, a really embarrassing...
Benny! Oh my god!
Yes. Like, a super embarrassing childhood.
He would have had to kill him. He would have had to
kill him. Okay, wait,
yeah.
You know what's an even better dynamic, though? Is going back to your other crack ship idea. A very little I'm fucking your mom dynamic.
Oh my god, stepdad Poe! Wait! Okay, no, you know what? I wasn't sold on the romance, but now I am.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think that was what we needed.
Yeah.
We did it! Okay.
We did it. We fixed it.
God.
I have actually read a really good fic before where Poe ends up dating Luke, which was hilarious. I really enjoyed that.
I don't like that as much.
Fun.
It's not as fun.
It's not as
I'm done with all of it.
There's not.
I think Poe should have gotten to fuck all three of them.
Yo! Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh!
Just the original trilogy bicycle.
Yeah?
I'll toss in Lando for free.
Perfect. Yes. Leia's like, if you can invite Lando, then I can invite Poe. And Han is like, I'm cool with that. That's fine.
Do you think they invite Chewie, or...
No.
I think that's up to Poe.
No, Chewie goes home to his wife and is like, this is none of my
business.
business.
Home to his wife.
That's
like,
true.
You guys have fun.
Yeah. It's like...
I respect all of you, but
yeah.
No. Yeah.
Chewie's like, I brought you this bottle of wine and now I'm out. Mm-hmm. You have a good night. We had dinner together and now I'm going home.
There's bottled water in the fridge. Stay hydrated.
Yeah.
Stay hydrated,
Chewie's
guys.
like the mom
Stay
friend.
safe. I brought you condoms.
Yes.
You'll need them.
Wow,
that's
so
beautiful. Okay, that's
Happy
the
Pride.
best original idea we have for Poe, I think. I think we nailed it.
Yes. I think we did.
Yeah.
I think we did. This is, while we're on the original ideas, this is where the Finpo thing is going to come in. For those of you who want to talk about Finpo.
It's really good. Like, it's a great dynamic. I'm sorry.
They have so much good chemistry together.
Mm-hmm.
I love how they meet. That's so funny.
It's very cute. It's
so
such a great meet cute. Yeah, I think I was always on the train of, like, it's never going to happen, so I'm not particularly invested in it. Because I'd rather be invested in something that I think is going to happen, which at the time was Finray. But, like, I understood all of the arguments for it and all of the appeal of it, even though I was like, I don't want to get super invested in thinking that this might actually go somewhere, because it's very clearly never going to go anywhere.
Yeah, and I also need to plug that, like, platonic male friendships are also so important, and it, like, we are so afraid that two men who are friends are going to come across as gay that we shy away from telling any interesting stories about any kind of intimacy with them, even if it's entirely platonic, and, like, just let them hold hands. It's fine. Men hold
Bite
hands.
his lip. It doesn't have to mean anything.
If you are a straight man listening, you should hold hands with your straight male friends. Holding hands is good. It's fine. It's not gay. And also it could be gay and that would be okay.
It could be gay. It could be gay and that's fine. People maybe would have read them as less gay if Finn and Rey had already been together. I'm just saying.
Exactly. And I'm of the idea that like you could have done Finn Rey and then had Poe have a queer backstory. Too. Yeah. That like the Kerry Russell character could very easily have been a male love interest.
Could have been a man so easily. Also,
and then it's like, okay, he's not like in a relationship right now. They're not kissing, but like just like oh yeah, he like dated a dude once.
It's extremely common for the Star Wars trios to be shipped together. Usually the original trilogy, it's just that Han is sleeping with both of them, not together. But
at least by when all three were out.
Yeah. The sequel trilogy is actually the only trio that I actually ship all three of them together. I think that Poe has a really interesting dynamic with both of them. And I think that as a trio, they are the only couple that I think could actually make a throuple work of the three trilogies.
Sure. And in fairness, none of the throuple are genocidal fascist maniacs, and that does help.
It does.
And none of them are related, more importantly.
And none of them are related. So, it's missing some of the major stumbling blocks of the other two.
But, like, genuinely, even if you made those other characters, like, completely perfect, as, like, character dynamics go, they mesh really well. And that is one of the most frustrating things about the sequels, is that they have these really good, solid characters with really good actors, and the story sucks.
The writing is so bad.
Their characters are so interesting, and they're so fun, and they're so cool. And then the plots are awful.
The execution is the worst.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah, so unfortunately the good aspects of the sequels exist only in fandom. And Poe deserved a lot better than what he got. Like, I'm glad they didn't just kill him off. I'm glad that he got to be around and do a little bit more, and that we did get some good stuff within Rise of Skywalker, that fun dynamic he has with Rey, and even just the fun dynamic that they kind of have as a throuple, even if it's a platonic throuple, is fun. It's interesting. It's not particularly deep, but, it's interesting. And I wish we'd been able to get a little bit more of it.
Yeah.
I think we're time for a goat fact.
Okay. Goats are very emotional. They have richer emotional lives than many people realize. Not only are they surprisingly intelligent and can learn a task within about 12 attempts, they identify their friends by sound alone and can even distinguish other goats' emotions by listening to their calls. In a study, researchers found that goats have different psychological reactions based on the emotions they hear from other goats, a sign of social phenomenon known as emotional contagion. Emotional contagion. The goat's heart rate variability, the time between heartbeats, was greater when positive calls were played compared to when negative calls were played.
That's so cute.
You didn't give this to a Jedi episode?
No, because they're emotional.
I think that
we should let... It's like they're feeling each other's emotions in the Force.
I think they should let men be more emotional.
They should let men be more emotional. And also, like, when you're a good leader, you know what's going on, and you know how to respond. You can read
the emotions of the people around you.
Yeah.
He's very in tune with the people around you. They're really good at, like, bringing them towards your goal.
All right, I'm here for it.
That's cute. Our intro and outro music is Mos Eisley Cantina by Speed Kicks. Angela and I edit, our artwork is by me, and Sugar is our writer and researcher. You can find us on Instagram and Tumblr at Unleash the Goats. Thanks for listening.